Hi guys, welcome to my Stitch with me. This is my fourth one of these I'm doing. It's Sunday morning, well it's Sunday afternoon. It's 12 here in the UK and I've set up my little stitchy area around me, which hopefully I'm going to crop out so it's just the stitching that you see, because yeah, there's stuff everywhere. So I asked you to ask me questions and thank you very much, you have. I've got lots to talk about. I'm going to just go in order that the questions came in, and I think I'll answer the Merchant Navy questions as they are, but I think maybe next week on my Stitch with Me I will, as my umpteenth cup of coffee for this morning, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out old pictures so that I'll do a Stitch with Me and insert, and as I talk about it I'll insert little pictures for you so you can see what I'm talking about, because sometimes the scale is a bit lost, because unless you've seen one of these beasts up close you can't really visualize the size of some of the ships I was on. So for right now I have pulled out the Renato Paralyn piece, which I started back end of last year, which we decided we couldn't find a name for. It basically translates to here with my friends or something. We actually worked out that there was no clear translation for it, but it's a beautiful piece by Renato Paralyn. It's oval. There's a whole pile of deer in the middle with bunnies and owls, and then a whole pile of little flying birds, and then this beautiful border round it. So I'm going to get going, and I'm going to, because as I've said over and over again, I'm hoping my head's not going to be in this. I'm on my quilted stitching cushion to try and bring me, I'm just trying to keep it up at the right sort of angle. So I'm just going to get a little stitch in there just to see where I am. Right, I can see where I am on my chart, because I either need to, things in Pattern Keeper on my phone I've still got a bit of an issue with, but I'm working on it, you know, I'm still really quite new to all of this. So grab your stitching, grab your cup of something nice to drink, and I'm going to answer some questions, if I can keep my eye on where the heck I am on my pattern. I will do. I've split a stitch already. Right, I've split a stitch there, so it looks, that stitch there, do you see the top leg there looks really messy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up the hole and I'm going to collect it up. I'm going to go under it with my thread, pull it nice and tight, and go back down the hole, and as I pull that tight, that neatens up that stitch without having to frog it out and do it again. So I've just neatened up a bad stitch there, which is something I have started doing rather than frogging out. I'm just going to get a pen from my pen pot so that I can mark off where I am. And I'm a chart scribbler. I'm not going to be very much use to people for passing stash, because my charts get scribbled on if it's a paper chart. Right, so my first question was from the Marzipan Stitcher, and she asked me where on earth, if I had the choice, would I choose to live? Now my first thought, the first thing that popped into my head was Cornwall. Here in the UK, in Cornwall. I spent the first not quite 11 years of my life in Cornwall. I wasn't born there. I was accidentally born in Malta, which is in the Mediterranean, but only accidentally, and I didn't live there for just 6 weeks. But so I grew up in Cornwall. My dad was Royal Navy, whereas I was Merchant Navy, he was Royal Navy. And so the big naval training base is HMS Raleigh, which is just over the border between Devon and Cornwall on the River Tamar. And so we lived on the Cornish side, just there, in a place called Tor Point, and I grew up there the first 11 years. And we obviously used to go to the beach all the time. It was pretty idyllic. My dad was at sea until I was 8, and then he came ashore and worked at HMS Raleigh. He was very good at pastoral care. He's got a very good temperament for looking after nervous young boys who were very, very homesick. So he used to look after the new entry, do a lot of pastoral care for them. He's that kind of nice human being. So we used to spend a lot of time at the beach, and there's a couple of beaches down there that I wouldn't mind living on or nearby. There's a place called Downderry, where the houses, these big individual houses, big detached houses, have their own private paths down to the beach, which to me is my idea of absolute heaven. And when I was little, I always used to dream that I'd live in one of those houses with my own path down. It's not exactly a cliff, you know, it's like a steep grassy path, but they have their own gates and their own grassy paths down to the beach. And I still can't think of very much better than that. If I was to move abroad anywhere, I'd probably go to New Zealand, but my ship has sailed in that respect, that I couldn't go now because my kids are too old. I'm very much of the firm opinion that if you're going to emigrate, you need to do it when your kids are small enough that they, you know, don't have a big friendship group. I'd never uproot my kids. I mean, not that I ever could now. I don't have any skills that would be a requirement or anything. So, but I think that's about one of the only places in the world that I'd happily up sticks and go to. And again, I'd want to live in the middle of nowhere. You know, I'm a one-trick pony. So that was that. The next sort of comment was from Bianca. Bianca, I'm never going to be able to pronounce your surname. I'm sorry. It's something, I'm assuming Scandinavian. Anyway, you asked about the Christmas giveaway. Yes, the Christmas giveaway is still in pieces. I'm afraid I've not picked it up again since. I will give myself a bit of a push to get this done. This is the Advent giveaway. It's still in process. I still have just 6 of these done, but it's still on my mind, so it will be done and it will be given away. There's no two ways around that. I'm just extremely slow, and you've seen how I chop and change and half make this and half make that. So that's where I am with that. But I am fully intending to finish it, and I'll draw a winner down from the people who've entered it up to you know, now I suppose, because I haven't had any new entries for a good month. So I think we're at where we are with that. And I think there's about 25 entries into it, which is not bad going, seeing as I made you watch all my Flossmas videos. So I think that's not bad going to get even that many entries. So I will draw with that as and when I get it finished, but it's still in process and you haven't missed it. It's just me being a big crap. These stitches look tiny and the sun's gone in, so let's have a go. Has it just gone behind a cloud? So that's artificial light's not as good. It's not as nice, is it? The sun was out beautifully then. Okay, now from Witchcraft, go and watch her floss tubes if you haven't. She asked me which software I use. I just simply use a free app called UCut. That's what I use. It's extremely easy to use. To upload video, to put the videos from your phone album across to it, to edit in pictures, to put text in. I find it extremely easy to use, and it's just a free app. You can pay for a full package, but so far I haven't felt the need to upgrade to a paid for package. It's just a free little software thing called UCut, and I'm Android. So that's what I use. And she also asked if I could, which of my whips would I choose to finish if I, you know, if I could, which one would I really want to have finished this year if I could. And I don't really have a clear answer to that, because I'm a process stitcher. For me, it's the stitching. It would be nice to finish a long dog this year, but I couldn't say which. It's not going to be any of the biggies because I'm in process. I don't know. I want to finish my temperature tree extremely soon because it's a 2020 tree and it's overdue. It's overdue its finish. Other than that, I want to keep up with my temperature bookshelf. Eric's eaten the pattern, so I need to, and the printer was switched off. I don't know why. You know, our printer's Wi-Fi and it connects up. So, Christy, I put temperature tree from the original PDF into Pattern Keeper, and you can do it. The original PDF is compatible. She's now putting out Pattern Keeper compatible PDFs for her patterns. Christy from Christy's Corner. Also a great floss tube because she does embroidery as well, which is nice to look at something a little different every now and again. But we're getting her. She's getting sucked in, doing cross stitch a bit more now. It's a slippery slope, Christy. Oh, and I pulled this out just for you. I got some frames the day before yesterday when I was out shopping. Here's some loopy text, and you're not the only one. I don't like it either. There we go. She doesn't like this loopy font. I don't like it either. You're not on your own. But I did get some very, very plain, very, very cheap. That one was £2 and this one was £1.50. Square. I find square frames quite hard to get hold of. I got these in the range. Perfectly serviceable. They've got glass on them. And I've got some square pieces to finish. So this will get painted with acrylic just to paint it out, make it match in the colour a bit better. But as soon as I saw it, I thought, oh, loopy font. I must show Christy. So that's for you. And no, I don't like it either, especially when it says things like you get some yoga quote or something. That's not my thing. My next question was from A.M. Zolkowski. Another lovely surname I'm never going to be able to pronounce, and I apologise for butchering names. Asking me if I ever find any charts overwhelming and just too much to cope with, or do I just jump in? Now, if you'd asked me this question a year ago, I'd have said, yes, I'm not ready for a Mirabilia or a Celtic Lady. And now I'm just thinking, one stitch at a time. It's just one stitch at a time. I've started some pretty big pieces and some pretty complicated pieces, and I'm very much looking forward to starting my Celtic Lady, my Celtic Summer. And yeah, I just dive right in. I was a little tentative at first. I thought they were a bit beyond me, but it's just one stitch at a time, isn't it? So no, I just dive right in. And then the next comment was from Sophie Scotland, mentioning diamond painting pens and a possible idea for Robin. So I explained to him, I showed him my diamond painting because I do diamond painting, and I picked up her Flora's when I got her at the beginning of lockdown. I got her it's a little stitch, little Lilo and Stitch, he's hula dancing, and I got it for her at the beginning of lockdown for something for her to do. And she worked on it maybe twice and it got forgotten about, and I found it the other day, and I've been working on it, just thinking, well, maybe we should just get this done. I have a Diamond Art Club in process, but I've been doing so much stitching that I've not really done very much lately. So I showed him what I meant, because he's seen us doing diamond painting. My little boy likes it very much, actually. He's got that kind of methodical attention span where he can sit for a good 3/4 of an hour and do some diamond painting. We did a shark one he did all the exciting bits on the shark and I did all the blue background, which is rather nice. And we've got that under the sea picture with the 2 dolphins in the middle of it, and then all the corals and everything. I've seen people stitching it. I think it might be the same artist as all the wildlife pictures that people stitch, you know, the Hades. Anyway, we've got a cheap Chinese knockoff of that, you know, which is what you get when you get them on eBay. And so I showed him that, and he went out to his shed and he made me this. And all the nib is just a nib pulled from one of the plastic. So what do you think? I told him it had to sit neatly and nicely in my hand. I said to him, all you do is that. So it needs to sit nicely in your hand. So he made that, which I think is rather lovely. He, as I said with the spindles, he loves turning a twiddly turny thing. So I rather like that. All I said to him was, because he took off the plastic thing, which he doesn't like bits of plastic, so he'd much rather set a piece of metal in rather than the plastic. And it looks a bit stubby because it's missing the plastic nib piece. But I think it's going to work just as easily as normal. I will have a go with it and let you know. And that's what he came up with as a, here you are, have that. So that's rather pretty, I thought I'd show it. Donna, the River Stitcher, you like pairing up socks? Brilliant. Send me your address and I'll send you 4 bin bags full. And I'm only half joking, because I don't like pairing up socks, and I've got millions of them literally running around my house. I'm just marking off my little chart here. I'm on some sort of leaf. Kerry Herb. Don't know if I'm saying your name wrong. Possibly. For the thread drops, do I use a cookie cutter? The straight answer is yes. That's what I had, and that's what I did to it. I literally manipulated, because they're quite flexy. Quite flexy. That one is still round, and I just made it the shape that I wanted it. So they do come out even. Take several goes and some neatening up and some sanding off, and because you always get the little tip where it joins. But yes, it's a cookie cutter and it's that shape. So yes. Juliana, San Diego Stitcher. Maddie is alive and well. I swear I didn't trade her in for some needle paints. She's I've seen her this morning. She has been up and had a shower, so she's definitely there and alive and well. And thank you for, it was you who told me about using the bigger needle with the sulky. Thank you ever so much. It's so much easier now, and I'm actually really enjoying using it now, whereas before I was thinking, what's all this hype about sulky? I'm not getting on very well with it. So thank you ever so much for that. Nick asked me if that piece of fabric that came with the lavender and lace was permin. No, it's Cashel, but I've got a piece of permin and that is revolting as well. Yes, it's got the same kind of feel about it. That horrible, rigid. I got a piece of navy blue permin and a piece of purple permin. And yeah, you can keep them. I don't like it. I don't like it. Another lady, oh, she's on the next page, did say, Sheila said, that awful linen, you can wash it. I've written, that awful linen needs washing. She says it's got size in it, which is what makes it so horrible and rigid, and you can give it a good wash. The piece of green I'm probably going to leave, and I'm probably just going to pass that along the bus. But that piece of purple I've got, that I was stitching my tribal cat on, which I have UFO'd permanently and will stitch with different thread, because I was stitching that with rayon, which I don't recommend at all. I will wash that, because if I can get that piece of, it's like an Ada, but it's horrible. So rather than being, the Cashel is a 28 count even weave, except it's not like this 28 count even weave, which is Laguna, which is delightful. Yeah, so I will give that a wash and see if I can make it a little better. I have appropriated this Piggy scissor fob because I'm using it, and I actually really quite like the scissor fob in my hand when I use it. I quite like it, so I've appropriated the Piggy. I will make more eventually, you know what I'm like, but that Piggy is mine. Because I don't think I could even give him away now. I've been using him for the past, what, 3 weeks now. Very handy on my scissors. Who knew? I didn't know. I didn't have any of this paraphernalia before. So where am I? The next was a Jacqueline Liebfried, who asked if I'm planning on, could I make the thread drops without the magnets? Yes, I'm totally going to make some without magnets on. It's just for me, for my purposes. Look, I should be using one here to show you. Because this is bobbinated, for my purposes, I want it stuck on the corner of my work when I'm doing a monochromatic piece like this. I want it stuck on my work. But I will make them without magnets, and possibly put just a little hole at the top so they can be put on a ring. Robin is also working on some wooden ones, a single thread drop, some wooden ones which will have a little hole at the top as well, so that they can be put on a ring. So yes, in the planning. Okay, where have I got to on my pattern? I think I'm there. Right. So my next pile of questions are all from Jennifer. You're wicked. Right, and I can demonstrate quite a bit of what you've asked me. First question, well, some of the questions, you asked me about silks. Do I stitch 1/2 or 2/2? Well, this, because it's 28 count, this is a dinky dye, mother of pearl, so it's absolutely glorious. 6 strand silk. I'm stitching this 2 strands because it's 28 count, so 2 strands of silk on a 28 count. There we go. If you look, you can see it's really nice coverage. I'm going to fill in his body. I'm going to finish this leaf and then I'm going to go and fill in his body because he looks a little bit weird without his body filled in. So yes, 2 strands here, but my medium-sized ship of life, because this is 40 count, I'm just using the 1 strand of it. Again, it's dinky dye, terracotta. So on that one, on the 40 count, I'm using 1 strand, and that gives me the coverage. So basically I use it just as I would a DMC. If I'd need 1 strand of DMC, I use 1 strand of silk, and because I use the stranded silk, I've only ever used Mrs. Sadus. Oh look, there's that spool Robin made. I just wound that little ball of Mrs. Sadus onto it. Doesn't that look fun? I think that looks super lovely. That's the end, and I could just take a piece off that. I think that's pretty cool, because it was too small to put a small on, but it was small enough to put a little bit of silk. So I've only used Mrs. Sadus and dinky dyes, and oh, if I can reach it, here in this bag, Karen water lilies, and that's an extra one for Dilemma's border. That's pomegranate for Dilemma's border. And then I've got charcoal and black sand beach. Which one am I using in? Oh, that's undoubtedly charcoal. So I'm using charcoal in my medium-sized Ship of Life. I got the two, but when you only use one strand, I couldn't choose between these two. They looked identical. I was hoping one would be much darker and one would be lighter, but I didn't order with enough contrast between the shades. That's very, very tonal together. So those are the only 3 types of silk I've used. And water lily, you get 12 strands. But again, it's still only the same as 1 strand of DMC. And she asked, would I use a loop start on silk, and not on a variegated, because I don't loop start with variegated because I want the variegation to show up. So folding it in half, you wouldn't get the colour. You see here, you might not be able to see, but this strand here is very pale and it goes into quite a big mauve here, and then it goes into like a turquoise colour here. And if I'd folded it in half, it would be more mixed and you wouldn't get this very bold variation. So I might loop start with the charcoal one if I'm using 2 strands, obviously, because that's, although it's variegated, it's choppy and mixed anyway, so it probably wouldn't matter. It probably wouldn't show. So I would loop start because I do like a loop start, but not on a super variegated thread. See, this one here, this mother of pearl, is super variegated, so I wouldn't do it on that one. Right. Right. Stitching on sparkly. I've got a really good example of this. You don't get glitter in your lap, it's woven in. So there's my little guy, and this is the one that you can really see. I've mislaid my dreaming girl. I've no idea where I put her after my floss tube. I'll have to dig her out. So you can see how sparkly this piece is. It's absolutely amazing. But here on the Elegant Squid, which is an ink circle, and it's finished, and I just need to frame it. This is for Maddie because I gave her the Kraken Wakes John Wyndham book to read, and she's had nightmares about squids ever since, so I obviously did her Elegant Squid. But can you see? It's got a very, might be able to see, woven into it is a strand of basically Krynic. But that's the end of the thread, which is unravelling, and there is that, so it's woven in. So it's amazing. You get the wonderful opalescent effect, and it's in the fabric, and it's lovely. And I love sparkly fabric. I love it. So that's sparkly fabric. How do I select my heids? I started off by simply looking through the website and just going, I basically went from artist to artist to artist until I got all the way down to Kirsten Mills and went, oh my god, I love them, all the little dragons. So that was how I started off selecting them, and then I joined the full coverage fanatics Facebook group, and then I got enabled, like the Bountiful Bookshelf. Done a bad stitch there. The Bountiful Bookshelf I saw on Full Coverage Fanatics, and I thought I've got to have that, and within 10 minutes I bought it and downloaded it and was planning starting it. I've seen lots of Randall Spanglers to the point that I wanted to stitch them being enabled. Kim, the Spartan Stitcher, who again, she's one of the moderators of Full Coverage Fanatics. She did Trick or Treat, which is the Halloween house. Totally enabled me, and I got Home Is Where the Magic Is just recently. And while I was looking at Randall Spangler's, trying to avoid his dragons, his little draglins, because I love them. But now I've talked myself into one of those, but I'm not even going to go back and look and buy again until I've made some jolly good progress into the ones I've got. I really have got enough on the go at the moment. I'm not quite overwhelmed, but you know, enough's enough for now, she says, and I'll have another whip. You'll see when I do my next floss tube, I'll be like, oh, I've got a new whip. I'm just assuming because I know what I'm like. So yes, first off, I started choosing them. I saw Treasure Hunt Bookshelf and fell in love with that. I was perusing Arts and Design's website there and bought the paper pattern from them. I've since bought a PDF copy of it as well, because paper chart for a Haid is like water torture. Once you've used Pattern Keeper, going back to a paper chart is, yeah, it's not that fun. But I'm fine enough working off paper charts, but not a Haid. I like them to highlight my stitching for me, makes it so much quicker. So that's how I choose my Haid. How do I choose which piece I'm going to work on? I just pick what I fancy, unless there's an event on for full coverage fanatics, like the bookshelf pieces. So it's just fallen really nicely that I'm going to work on. I decided to work on my bookshelves. It's obviously work on any full coverage piece for this many stitches or match the theme. Sarah the Stitching Mummy's matching the theme because she's not counting, because she doesn't have time to put in thousands and thousands of stitches a week. She's spread pretty thin over 500,000 whips, running a full household, and I think a fair on full Etsy business as well. I think she does an awful lot more than we know. So she does an awful lot of stitching, but doesn't have the time to dedicate to counting. So she picks the theme because she's got so many full coverage whips. She can pick, you know, romance. She's picked 3 romantic pieces. I've lost my thread. Yes, so unless there's a definite challenge on, like this weekend is Big Strides, and I've put in quite a lot. I'm still not at 1%, but I've put in quite a lot of work into the Best to See You With, because that's my biggest piece, and that's what I'm working on this weekend. So that's when I get one chosen for me, as it were, but that's my only group that I do challenges in. Everything else, like this piece today, I just fancied something nice and easy. I know I was going to be talking and not really concentrating, so I've picked something with a nice big paper pattern. It's monochrome, so I'm not going to be chopping and changing colours constantly, and I hadn't worked on it yet this year, and I think this is going to be a fairly easy one because it's 28 count. It's nice and big, and it's nice and easy to just plonk a pile of stitches into. So that's how I chose what I'm stitching on today. So that's there. Right, Q-snaps. I don't actually own a branded Q-snap. Mine are R&R craft frames, which is what I can get hold of very easily. Now, if I bring in the key, which is my most stitched on Haid, and I say, righto, I'm going to fill in some stitches here. I'll just plonk my Q-snap in. This is how I do it. I go clunk, clunk, and the more you've got under it, right through his face. I'm just going to steal a bit there. For some reason I've only got 3 legs. And then nice and tight. And that is drum tight. And I find that the more, even if I've got stitches under it, I have no issues with them distorting or pulling. I would never put beads. I wouldn't put a Q-snap across beads. I wouldn't put a Q-snap across back stitch. Being very careful with my shipping trees with the back stitch. But that's essentially how I roll with that. Because I've got the extra stitching, so it's thicker, I find my Q-snap stays very, very tight the whole time I'm stitching on it, and I just basically move it a lot. I'll stitch one bit and then my stitching will go up here, so I'll adjust. I'll just move it to the next bit I want to be at, and on it goes again. And I don't cover, I don't protect it. This has been on and off, in and out, and I find it's fine. I have no trouble at all with my stitches getting pulled and distorted. I don't know if a branded Q-snap would be it's tighter or harsher. I don't know. I haven't got one to try. But This goes, my R&R frame goes bar tight, absolutely drum tight. So I assume it's as tight as it's going to go. If I'm doing a piece with something that I think is delicate or I think might pull a bit, I simply cut a piece of old, down on the floor. Here's an old pair of pyjamas of Flora's, age 8. Costco, Kirkland ones, brilliant. Gosh, I think actually these were originally Maddie's, but it's got such a neat print and it's such good quality jersey that I've kept them. And there you can see, all I've done is cut that much of the leg off, and I've cut it into 4 strips, and that I laid under shipping trees, and you just lay it under and put your frame over the top of that, and then that helps if it's slipping, if you've got some slippage going on and it's not holding its tension, or you think it might be a little delicate, then that's, see, that to me is tight enough to be stitching on. That came off the floor and was full of pits. So that's how I work a Q-snap. Favourite fabric colour brand count. I like 32 count. I'm a Zweigart. I'm trying to only buy Zweigart fabric now. I love it. I particularly like Murano even weave, whatever this is called. The 32 count Laguna even weave is about my favourite. This is 28 count. I'm perfectly happy with that. I do like Ada, but I like my Ada floppy and washed out. Floppier the better. I don't like the rigid fight your back Ada, but I almost exclusively plump for Zweigart fabric. Favourite colour varies wildly. My favourite colours are purple, turquoise, teal and magenta, so you'll always get a variation of that. Favourite DMC colour? I don't know. What immediately jumps to me? 995? That very, very shocking turquoise. I like that very much. There's a couple of the blues as well that I like very much. Doobie-doobie-doo. I'm just going to turn the page. Have I taught anybody to cross stitch? No. No, I don't think I have. And Tanya Roberts also asked me, did somebody teach me or am I self-taught? And I can't really remember. It's just something I can do. I don't know if anyone ever showed me. If they did, it would have been my mum or possibly my grandma. More likely my mum. But it's just something I can do. I don't think cross stitch is terribly difficult. It's just, you know, it's a cross. It's one stitch one way, one stitch another way. You can, I just am thrilled that I can make such beautiful things just by repeating the same quite simple action over and over again. It's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. You know, it's how you use colour, it's how you follow a pattern. That's the hard bit, not the hard bit. That's the bit that you have to have I think it's about confidence. It's being confident that you can manage what you're doing, that you can say, yeah, I'm going to take on this enormous hade. I'm going to start up here in this corner with one stitch. And once you've got that one stitch in, you've started it. Technically, you're stitching a hade, one stitch in. And yeah, I find it, it's like falling down a rabbit hole, isn't it? It's just brilliant. But so I've never taught anybody. I kind of showed Lizzie. We got a couple of little kits from Hobbycraft, and she was like, yeah, okay, I'm just going to get on with it. And I was like, do you need me to show you? And she was like, no. And so she can cross stitch, and she has done little, like you buy a little pack with a little greeting card. It comes with the card and the envelope and a little you know, 2 inches tall by 1 inch wide little picture that you put in the card. She's done a couple of those that we've picked up, and but I haven't sat down and talked to anybody. I think it'd be like trying to teach somebody to suck eggs, isn't it? It's in itself, it's not difficult. It's just the whole wonderful process of a hobby, and there's just tricks and tips to go with it, but the actual stitching is just stitching, which I personally love. Otherwise I wouldn't do it so much, would I? I wouldn't do it quite as much as I do. Sorry, I'm just marking off the bits I've just done there. Otherwise I'll find myself stitching the same leaf. I'm going to cough, I'm sorry. Yeah. Now, reproduction samplers. Do I stitch reproduction samplers? And if not, why not? My straight answer is not yet. I don't think I have a reproduction sampler. I don't think I own a pattern of, you know, Miss Mary somebody from 1812 who aged 9 years. I haven't yet seen one that makes me go, oh wow, I want to stitch that. I love them. I think they're beautiful. I spent a lot of my childhood, I'm going to use the word as it was when I was a child, being dragged. Nowadays I would love it, around National Trust properties, which here in the UK, they basically own an awful lot of the stately homes. The ones that are not privately owned and are open to the public, they're generally gifted to the National Trust, who look after them, maintain them and open them to the public. And my parents loved gardens and walking around gardens, and if the houses were open to the public, we'd walk around the house. And the embroidery and the stitching, even as a 7, 8, 9, I think I kept going with them until I was about 14 or 15. Even back then, it was the stitching that jumped at me, that I would seek out and, you know, pore over, because it was wonderful. And there you saw a lot of old, you know, in the place where they were stitched by the little girls of the house. And yeah, I love looking at them. But do I want to stitch somebody else's name into a sampler? I don't think so. I think I'm a change all the things, and a lot of them are have Bible verses in them, and I'm not religious at all, so I wouldn't want a Bible verse. I think some of them are very good stories. We can learn a lot from some of the stories, but I'm very much of the opinion that it's very much of their time. It was people trying to explain the world with the information they had available to them at the time. And I think as you know, we've learnt a lot more as time's ticked on. I find reading the Bible not my thing. And I know an awful lot of people, brings great comfort, and it's their thing. And that's fine too. But I'm not Bible versey. So motifs and Bible verses the motifs are generally lovely, and I love those. So I like Quakers, but I'm not stitching a Quaker, not yet. But I'm not a reproduction sampler yet. There was a really lovely one out a little while ago called We Live in Hope, and I came so close to buying that, but I was already planning how I was going to change it. And when you think, well, if I'm going to change it, why am I buying the pattern knowing that I'm going to change almost everything on it? So it's that's Robin letting Clive out the front. So no, I'm not, I've run out. I'm not reproduction samplery yet. Now, a couple of the ones that Ellen's done, Maximum, we all watch her, Maximum Cross Stitch Power Hour, Ellen, are amazing, and I am looking at buying a couple of those, but again I'd have to change them up to suit me. But I've got enough enormous pieces on. Of course, only the absolutely enormous ones lean towards me. I'm much more long doggy. I'm much more of a long dog person, I think. Right, so I've put in enough up there. I'm going to come down here and fill in here. So I'll put some stitches in here. How many whips are too many? I think I'm just about topping out. I've got, I think, just north of 40 whips, and because so many of mine are so big, I've done my whipboard. This isn't splitting very neatly. I've done my whipboard this week just so that I can see what I've got, because I'm getting slightly overwhelmed by the number of pieces I've got lying around, and I don't want to forget anything or miss anything. So I think I'm about topped out, she says, and then next floss tube it'll be, oh, I saw this pattern, I saw this pattern, oh, look at this wonderful reproduction sampler I've started. I couldn't resist it, it was amazing. Yeah, that'll happen. I know that's going to happen. But a lot of the pieces I'm stitching, I am a very, very long way from being done. A very long way from being done. I don't know what's going on next door. Some sort of mad screwdrivering, drilling, it sounds like. Have I ever been to a retreat? No, partly because I didn't know they existed until I started watching FlossTube, and I'm not in a gang. I'm not in a group, you know, I'm not in anybody's local stitching group. I don't have an LNS. I don't have a group of stitchy friends I meet up with, just because I didn't know that sort of thing happened, and I don't think there's anything like that anywhere near me, and if there is, I haven't come across it yet. Would I like to go to a retreat? Oh, absolutely. I'd be like this quiet little mouse in the corner. I'd probably not manage to say more than 4 words out loud the whole time I was there, but I'd love to go to one. But you know, the world we're living in at the moment, it's not going to be a thing anytime soon, is it? And have I ever gifted something I've regretted? No, because I haven't really gifted anything. I did the Renato Paralyn Christmas for my parents, which was a fairly safe bet. My mum is a stitcher, she appreciates the work and time and effort that goes into it, and consequently my dad the same, because he lives with a prolific crafter, so he sees the time and effort, and it was undeniably a beautiful piece. And I put it behind glass, and the first thing I said to them is, you can shove it in the loft when it's not Christmas. You know, I won't be offended if it's not on display year round, which I wouldn't have been at all. Other than that, I've given away 2 ornaments, one to my auntie and one to my sister. As expected, my sister just went, what's that? It doesn't go with my Christmas decor. And my auntie likes angels very much, so I did her a tiny little small. It was literally, you know, 3 inches by 2 inches, but it was very pretty. So I always send her a little something. Everybody got face masks this year. Everybody got face masks. I didn't really send Christmas cards, I sent face masks. They seemed more useful. Right, moving on. Kylie Shaw asks, do I use needle minders? Because when I'm showing my pieces, they generally don't have needle minders on them. Answer is yes, sometimes I do use needle minders, partly because I didn't know they were a thing. I make stuff because I love making things, basically. I make things that I like. So playing with Fimo is lovely, and if I can sell some of the prolific things I make, that's brilliant, because then it's not cluttering up my house, is it? And so generally I've got the magnets. So this is I took these off this one, and I use chart buddies. So I'll get my chart, and with a paper chart, this is Dreaming Girl that I'd scrumpled up and put in the bin, but of course I had to get it back out again and flatten it out because I've got to frog her out, but I've lost her. So normally my pattern would be there like that, so that I can stitch and it's there, and then I just fold and move I mutilate patterns. I fold and move my pattern around as I'm stitching. So normally I've got these, and sometimes they've got pretty things on them, and sometimes, because I have piles and piles of needle-minder magnets lying around, sometimes they're just plain ones. Some of my pieces do have needle minders on. Bountiful Bookshelf has got a Welsh second class stamp on it, and who else has got one stuffed on them? Those two haven't. My Kingdom of Books has got a lovely Christmassy chimney pots with a black and white cat crawling between them. So that one's got a needle minder on, and it's got a needle on it, and it's just in the pile, so the needles stay on where they're supposed to. So some of mine do and some of them don't, but generally I've got a couple of these knocking around on just about every piece. Karen commented that, you know, I'm gonna have a whip. I'm gonna need a bigger board. I actually said that to myself the other day when I looked at my board and I looked at how many whips. I said, oh, I'm gonna need a bigger boat. That was my thought too. I'm gonna need more. Autumn's Granny has said she's done a couple of the Celtic ladies and the 28 count works beautifully for them. So thank you for that. I will get a piece of 28 count for my Celtic lady. It will be like this. It'll be Laguna. This is 28 count and it's absolutely lovely. The crosses aren't too big at all, so I'm quite happy to get myself a piece of 28 count. She said the beads sit really nicely on it, so thank you for that, and I will get myself a piece to do it on. Tracy Wright commented on the tabs on the DMC. Apparently my old DMC's in the kit up. Apparently they had that so that the number didn't slide off the skein. It held on, so even if you'd been using it, you didn't lose what number it was, which is a really good idea, I suppose, isn't it? And they're paper bands rather than plastic ones, which our DMCs have now, so I like that. And it's 80s. My Celtic kit up is from the 80s. So, you know, it's knocking on for it's between 32 and 40 years old. So I am thrilled to bits to have it, and I will certainly give it a good home. Rebecca got in contact with me and I'll send you your needle minder as soon as I've glued it on. You're very welcome to a little gizzit from me. She sent me a nice message, so thank you for that. And Kristen in Canada asked me what are my other unicorns. Basically the Celtic ladies, the kit ups for the Celtic ladies are my unicorns for now. I haven't seen anything else that I want more. I know I can get the patterns, and I will. I'll get the patterns. I've nearly bought the patterns several times. What I did notice is somebody is selling the Celtic Autumn with the needle paints, and the colours that she's selling with the Autumn are actually the same ones I've already bought. So I don't know how much of the needle paints I'm going to need, but if I've got enough left over, the purples are the same numbers required for autumn, so I already have those, and of course they're the only things that make them special and hard to find. So if I've already got the stuff for 2 of them, I'm very pleased. And she asked me what on my zodiac sign and my Chinese sign. I am the middle of August, so I am a Leo, which I like very much, and I am a year of the dragon, so I'm a lion and a dragon, which I think as signs go. Ooh, my light just went out. I wonder why that happened. Ooh, wow. Okay. Heavens. Where's my plug? There's my USB. It's a proper Sony plug. That is boiling. Wow. Holy moly, that's hot. I think my ring light's just done its thing. My goodness me, I almost can't hold that in my hand. Right, my ring light's just given in, guys, so that's not brilliant. Wow, that's hot. Ooh, maybe it just either needs to just cool down a bit, or it's done something. It was only cheap and nasty from Amazon. It was a lightning deal from Amazon, so it wasn't ever going to be very brilliant. But wow, that's hot. Okay, that's all unplugged. Don't worry about that now. It's all unplugged and out. Whoa! Oh, I hate it when things go like that. My favourite things to cook. I'm stuck on the treadmill of cooking tea for children, and have been for years. Obviously 18 years, not quite 18 years, because obviously Maddie wasn't weaned at birth, but what I like to do most is bake. I'm a much better baker. I can make perfectly serviceable dinners every day of the week to feed a hungry family. I do all the usuals, endless pasta dishes, quite happily do a full roast dinner. Nothing phases me. I just get on with it. Things I don't like doing are things I don't like eating. I don't like processing whole fish because I don't like the bones and innards. Other than that, I'll pretty much cook everything, but I'm in the rut of producing a quick meal to feed a hungry family rather than, you know, oh, what shall I have tonight? Oh, I'll make something fancy. Nah. But I do like to bake very much. I do a good line in birthday cakes. Obviously with 4 children, we do a good line in birthday cakes. But I do like making cake very much. When we had the bike shop and we had a race team and we ran races, we actually put on the races and organised them. I always did a fantastic spread afterwards. You know, I'd make sheet cakes, tons of, instead of making cakes in the UK generally round, I'd make tray bakes. I'd make trays and trays of carrot cake and trays of chocolate cake, chocolate Malteser cake, and endless flapjack, perfecting flapjack recipe. And you can't get round it. The very best flapjacks has peanut butter in it. There's no way around it, which isn't suitable for everybody because not everybody can eat peanuts. So we eat peanut butter. So the best flapjack recipe I've determined has peanut butter in it. And anything else you've got lying around in the cupboards, I generally shove in flapjack. But yeah, I like baking very much. And then other than that, most of my other questions are about life at sea. Now, I did go to a special college. In the Merchant Navy, you apply to the company. You apply to the company you want to work for. So I worked for Shell. My entire career, I worked for Shell. And they basically secured me a place at college, which I then went to. And the only downside of this, there was a huge upside. The downside was I had to wear uniform. I had to wear a blazer and a company tie and black trousers. I generally wore a skirt because I was a girl, and I was like, right, I'm going to be a girl in a man's world. I'm going to be a girl. So I was always a girl, very blatantly female, rather than a lot of there weren't a lot for a start. There weren't a lot of, back when I was at sea, we're talking 20 to 25 years ago here, there was not a lot of women at sea. I was the only girl in my year at college doing my course. There were 3 other girls, but they were on different courses to me. This is out of an intake of probably 400. There was me. So me and another girl, but she was on a different course to me, and she went to sea almost straight away. And when you go to, I went to college in South Shields, which is on the northwest coast. Newcastle upon Tyne. Follow the Tyne out to where it meets the sea. One side is Tynemouth, the other side is South Shields. That's where I went to college. So that's what brought me this far north. And it was called a cadetship. So it's kind of like an apprenticeship. It was work-based. I did a full year at college, and then went to sea for a year. Came back to college for 2 terms, and then went back to sea for a year, and then came back to college for another 2 terms when I sat all my exams. And they were written exams, and then to get your actual, we called it a ticket, which was essentially your licence to go on a ship as an officer. Was an oral examination. Here comes Robin.
Dogs have got my jacket. Dogs have got my jacket and my other hoodie.
Well, you left it where they could reach it, obviously. You left it where Clay can reach it. You know what he's like?
Oh,
that skull cap's such a good look. Sorry, my last bit of coffee slurped. So, for a while, the Merchant Navy industry had what they termed a good idea. They would train their officers for both disciplines. Now, if you're at sea and you're an officer, you have deck officers, you have engineers, and every ship has an electrician. One electrician. So you generally were one discipline or the other, but they had this really neat idea that they would train up their officers to be dual, so that they did the engineering and they did the deck department, which is all your navigation, your rule of the road. It's called rule of the road. That's where it teaches you which way to turn the ship when you're meeting another vessel. Rule of thumb, turn to starboard. But for a while they decided they'd train them up for both. So I was a dual cadet because it was all they were offering me. So I'm not university educated. I have an HND, a Higher National Diploma in Marine Engineering, which I have never used. I was not a terribly good engineer. I wasn't terribly strong. I wasn't terribly interested. I wanted to be up on the bridge, basically. But I did it, and I passed it. And the day I sat my oral examination to become a 4th engineer, which is the lowest rung of qualified engineers, the most junior engineer is a 4th engineer, and obviously then you go 3rd, 2nd, 1st engineer, and then chief. Chief was I can't even remember, it's been so long. Chief, 2nd, 3rd, 4th was what you had on board. The guy, it was my 22nd birthday, and the guy who passed me basically said, you're never actually going to sail as an engineer, are you? And I said, honestly? And he was like, yes, honestly. I said, no. He said, okay. And he stamped pass. So he passed me on the assumption that I would never actually sail as an engineer, which I never did. I then went on to take my deck ticket a few months later, which I passed and went to sea as a third officer of the watch. Now, from the day you step on board as a deck officer to the day you leave, you basically sign on to the ship's articles. From then on, you keep a watch. So as a third officer, works the 8 to 12. So 8 in the morning until noon, and then 8 in the evening until midnight. And because you're the least experienced officer on board, you did get a couple of professional third mates who were older, like the age I am now, and which meant they never had the drive to progress up the ladder. But predominantly they were the youngest, most inexperienced, so the idea being they kept the watch when most people were up and about. So if anything was going to happen, there was always somebody else you could call on, because it was during the daytime, early evening, and you know, you could always summon help very, very quickly as a third officer, because it was a good watch time. I served as a third mate for 2 years, I think. But I'll chat through that when I've got some photos of ships to show you. And then I was then promoted to second officer, which meant I worked the 12 to 4, which leaves the 4 to 8 for the chief officer. So as a second mate, I was the ship's safety officer. I kept the 12 to 4 watch, and I was also responsible for all the passage planning, which meant I was the one that decided which course we would sail between point A and point B, and it was up to me to write on all the draw the course on the charts, and I was responsible for keeping the charts in good order. So I did all the chart corrections, and we're talking paper charts here. I am paper charts. I am from the days of paper charts. And also as a second mate, I did the noon figures. So every day at noon we had to, well, at first it was telex, and then fax, and then email the noon position of the ship to the company back in London, and our daily figures. I used to do the noon figures, which basically was how many miles we'd done in the day, in the 24 hours, you know, what speed, what our ETA was, all of that. So I have a book in the loft, which from the day I qualified until the day I came ashore, I've got exactly where I was in the world at noon every day, which is quite brilliant that I really kept a very tight record of it, because I always start out with good intentions and give it up, but this I kept the entire time, and that was for me. That wasn't for anything other than me. That was just for me, for my records, as it were. So I've got that. It's in the loft somewhere. But yeah, so I was paid to work a 70-hour week. So 8 hours a week watchkeeping, 8 hours a day watchkeeping, and then I was expected to do at least 2 hours extra. So as a second mate on the 12 to 4, you were expected to be up and about by about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. You had to be seen. You had to go up to the bridge and have a cup of coffee and be seen. So you didn't just sleep all day or sit in your cabin doing whatever. And then you'd get on and I'd go and maintain the breathing apparatus sets, or do something that I needed to get done, because we had a maintenance schedule, and obviously people on board have to do the maintenance. There's nobody else. So I'd do that, and then I'd do my 12 to 4, lunchtime till 4 in the afternoon. I could do my passage planning when I was on watch, you know, when you're deep sea. And then you get off work at 4, bum about for a bit, have your meal in the mess with everybody else, and then get a couple of hours kip, and then up for midnight and do midnight to 4 in the morning. And that's what I did from the day I got on board until the day I left, and it set me in. And then to have a child almost immediately after leaving my last ship, well, not, you know, it was 9 months after leaving my last ship and a couple of weeks, I already was used to sleeping in funny shift patterns. So actually having a baby who turned out didn't sleep at all was not a problem, because I was very good at catnapping. I was extremely good at catnapping. So it worked out all right actually in the end. And I miss it very much, but I'll do another Stitch With Me where I explain with pictures what I used to do. Right guys, this is 1 hour and 10 minutes long, so I'm probably about there. I don't know what this is going to sound like when I do it, and I'm sorry my ring light went off, but there we go. That's cooled down a lot now. I assume my ring light has burnt itself out. Never mind. Never mind. It's nothing I can't get sorted out. Righty ho guys, I've filled in his body a little bit, and I've done a little bit up here. Not very much stitching, but I've been doing a lot of chattering. Oh, reenactment stuff from Sharon's Crafty Creations. Look up Morgan Donna and a really lovely girl whose channel is called Sewing Through the Past. I'll put both of them on the screen for you. Or look up How to Make a Kirtle, and they'll take you to people who make clothes, who then lead you through into the reenactment stuff. It's a rabbit hole and it's glorious. So yes, thank you ever so much guys. We'll see how this goes down, but that's been really fun, answering a whole pile of questions. Most of them were stitchy, and a little bit more about my my days at sea, which for me is like a lifetime ago now, because obviously I've got an adult child. But to be honest, I would go back tomorrow if I could. If there was any way I could swing it, I would go back tomorrow, because I loved it. Not so much the job, but being at sea, honestly. Nothing else is like it. Anyway, that's all for me guys. My little scissor fob, which I'm enjoying using. Didn't even know I needed one. Who knew? I will catch you soon guys. Bye bye for now.